Yes, 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 yes. And we are alive once more. My dear viewers, my colleagues, I have a very special guest who was quite new to me because I think I know about anyone in the UFO community. But I stumbled over this wonderful gentleman. And let me introduce you. He's a hip hop artist, he's an author, he has his own podcast. He goes by the name of Truthseekah. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, brother, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Well, on different parts of the world. Hello from Amsterdam. It's getting dark over here. How are you, sir? Where are you? Where are you stationed?
I'm in Alabama in the U.S.
Alabama. Yeah, I was
Mhm.
just. I'm gonna give away that I was admiring his Alabama accent. It just sounds so
Mhm.
good to me. I don't know why, but it's like it's very rhythmic or something. You know, it kind of sings.
There you go.
Yeah. Maybe you can do a little bit of an introduction yourself for
Yeah,
our
for sure.
viewers.
For sure, for
Go ahead.
sure. Well, Max, yeah, thanks for having me on your podcast, man. So I go by the name of Truth Seeker. I'm a spiritual hip hop artist. I do spiritual and esoteric hip hop, sharing my experiences, trying to articulate the paranormal, ufology, spirituality, mysticism, religious, philosophical, all of that stuff within my music. My podcast. I interview people about those subjects. I wrote a book on those subjects, and so I just try to find new ways to articulate these experiences and philosophies and things that I've encountered in my life. So I've been doing this. I released my first esoteric album in 2012 called "Awaken the Fire," and usually every year or two I put out a project. Um, uh, just with that rhythmic spiritual hip hop, and so just released an album yesterday. My album White Magic came out on October the 6th, and so that's been,
Congratulations, man.
thank you, sir. Just getting all that out and getting a good bunch of feedback from people. So a lot of
Awesome.
work and been busy releasing that stuff. And yeah, so I wear many hats.
Do you have ADD like me? Because I do a lot of different stuff and it's all ADD, man.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just trying to work on honing it in, right? You got all these ideas, but then pulling
Right.
those ideas and keeping them in front of you and being consistent is hard. But when you're able to do that, we get so many beautiful things accomplished. And I really hone in on that with and try to help other people to do the same, other
That's
creatives.
that's so cool, man. Look, I was of course doing a little bit of research on your work, but you're a very talented dude. I listened to your albums and it's really good.
Thank
It's
you.
really, really good because you wouldn't say maybe looking at my face, but I'm a hip hop guy. I grew up with hip hop, admiring hip hop. I'm 42 years old, so at my time it was Ice-T, Public Enemy, Big Daddy
Hmm.
Kane, uh, you name them, Black Mafia, um, let's House of Pain.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
stuff.
But my favorite was always Ice-T. He's still one of my favorites. But so that's really cool, and it's very special to me that you use hip hop, your music, for your message.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on when you started hip hop, because you told me it came from a religious
Yeah.
feeling.
Hmm. Yeah. So today I consider myself a Christian mystic, and just starting out when I started doing hip hop, I just considered myself a Christian. So I got involved with Christian rap and Christian hip hop, and started out performing at churches and youth groups and conferences and stuff like that. So I released my first album in 2006 entitled Fight Music, but I've been in Christian rock bands and things like that. And it was very much church oriented and Bible oriented. And so that's where I started with writing and creating music. And so just over the years, it's evolved as my studies, as my spirituality and experiences. And as you get older, you start to study and just incorporate all of that stuff within there. So now it's not just Christian. I'm still a Christian mystic. That's just the label I resonate with, but I touch on so many other things, and even articulating the things that are in the Bible, but using other terminology. like spirituality or occult and things like that. We have many words that are talking about the same thing, especially in ufology. We will be talking
Yes,
about the angels. We'll be talking
yes.
about demons, and which are which, or the ETs or the Palladians, and there's a lot of overlapping things. So when I had that awakening and began to incorporate other things within my music, it opened up this whole new realm of vocabulary that I just love, and the definitions and what words mean. And now I can use 17 different words to say the same thing. And so
Mm.
with being a creative wordsmith, I have a huge catalog now versus you can only say these words that are Christian words or whatever the case is. So
Wow, wow, putting the bar high, huh?
hmm for sure, for
Yes,
sure.
yes. So, which is very fascinating to me, is of course the correlation between religion and UAP, ET, whatever is manifesting itself in our
Hmm.
skies or in our universe.
Yeah.
So, of course, the church didn't allow Galileo to look through didn't want to look through his telescope because, according to the Bible back then, they said Earth and humankind is the center of the universe. So they were very disqualifying
Yeah.
on, looking beyond what is known to mankind.
Hmm.
Now, uh, when since I started covering this topic, and I'm myself, I'm from a Jewish background, but when I started covering this topic, Kabbalah started making sense to me.
Yeah.
Do you know Kabbalah a little bit?
A little bit. Yeah. Hmm.
Right. So the metaphor Kabbalah uses the tree of life, right?
Hmm.
So you see a tree with its branches, but you cannot see what's underground and its roots. It's the unknown, right?
Yeah.
But the tree cannot stand up without the roots. So whatever is out there is part of whatever we are. So that is very fascinating to me to philosoph about it, philosophate. How do you call
Hmm.
it? Sorry, I'm a foreigner. Um, Sometimes I struggle to find words in English. Please forgive me. So let me ask you: was there a certain experience that made you dive into, say, mysticism, the occult, ufology, etc.?
Yeah, there's several I would say that I can trace back over my life and see what was something that was monumental for me. But I like to trace mostly everything back to when I was um, 4 years old, and I had a encounter with shadow beings that were in my room in the middle of the night and pinning me down to the bed, and I woke up,
Oh,
and I was
dude,
just a kid. Yeah.
dude, I have been covering that for a lot. Like my viewers are going to be like, oh, there's one trick pony Max again, because
Mm,
I've been talking about that a lot.
yeah.
Because I've been the people I've had that experience as an adult for a year straight.
Mm,
You know, paralyzed,
yeah.
unable to breathe, suffocating, and noticing something moving around in the room.
Yeah.
Right. So that really hits home with me. Please
Yeah,
continue.
man. And like I said, I was a kid, 4 years old, and had that experience. And so, um, I don't think I looked into it too much then. But as I got older and became a teenager, we'd have sleepovers and be at parties, and we tell ghost stories. And we start talking about creepy things. Do you believe in ghosts? Have you ever seen a ghost? And I was like, well, have you ever had this happen? I woke up in the middle of the night and this happened or whatever. And then I would hear other people share their stories. Wow, I seen the man with a pitch hat, top hat, come into the room, a shadow being. And people say, yeah, my dad had the same thing happen to him. And they call it witches, and they come and hear other stories. Well, they're not necessarily bad. I've heard stories where they woke people up whose house was on fire, and there was one on their foot waking them up, a shadow being, and so I think that that shifted what movies I rented, as we were renting movies and telling those stories and stuff. So I think that experience piqued my interest in the paranormal at a very early age. So that one encounter was like pivotal for me.
Wow, that triggered it, huh?
Hmm.
So to me, there was always a big difference between the paranormal, say ghosts, witches, shadow beings, and ufology, UAP, but because ufology to me is not paranormal, it's just the new normal. We just don't know what it is, but
Exactly.
it's clear it's there, right? So I me myself, I always had a problem putting it in that category of the paranormal. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of spiritual concepts that come along with it. Again, um, just like people try to get it out of religion and look at it as something totally separate, but we know that more research is being done where there's a interesting conversation of UFOs in the Bible, or the Anunnaki or the Elohim have created mankind. So something that we would say isn't related is very closely related. So
Do you know what
yeah, I think
Elohim? Do you know what Elohim means in Hebrew?
I do.
In Jew, it
Yes,
means
plural.
him. Yeah.
Yeah. hmm So there's like multiple explanations for a lot of this stuff. So I think stuff does overlap, especially when these craft and UFOs and things like that are traveling interdimensionally, showing up in people's rooms, and so people it leads to the study whether it's if it's demonic. Most people who are affiliated with religion are going to call UFOs demons. They think that they're demons. They don't think that they're off-world entities that live somewhere and have a home and a diet and a routine and things like that. They look at them as spirit beings. And so there's a lot more to the conversation, especially when they start doing things that defy the laws of physics and traveling interdimensionally. I think that ties the spiritual aspect to UFOs and these beings as well.
Yeah. A quick shout out to Maria because she helped me set this up.
For
So
sure. Hey Maria, shout
hi
out, shout
Maria.
out.
Thank you, lady. So, what's very interesting you just touched down on is that in one of my conversations with both Mr. Elizondo and former Senator Reid, is that the friction within the DOD and in the American politics on disclosing UAP, disclosing the UFO
Mhm,
phenomenon, is that a part of the resistance within the DoD comes from religious people,
mhm,
because Mr. Elizondo elaborated about one of his officers. He wanted more money for the ATIP program he was leading in secret. And the man said, "Yeah, but you don't really have to investigate this anymore because we already know what it is." And the religious man said, "It's angels and demons," which really made Mr. Elizondo a bit desperate because, of course, he wants to have money to really investigate what it is. And if you immediately disqualify
yeah,
whatever he's researching and say, "Yeah, it's a biblical phenomenon," yeah,
yeah, yeah,
we need to look more. Yeah,
yeah, even if it is, like, you could still explore it. We can find out where they're coming from, we can find out where they're hiding, if they're hiding in the center of the earth, if they are demons that are physically driving craft, which I don't believe. I do think, they are more angelic, but as far as demons that are flying around in spaceships, I really don't. Such an easy way to compartmentalize and so, oh yeah, that's what it is. We don't have to look into it when it's like, hold on, where are they coming from? Who are they in alliance with? How do we? Can you kill them? Do they bleed? Right? There's a lot more. How did they get there? There's so many theories, and there's so much more exploration with that comes to the table, and I think it's worth looking into um, for
of
the people who
course.
feel led to do it. The people who feel like they've already got it all figured out, which is mostly the religious community, they're not going to be looking into this stuff, and so that's
Well,
why we kind of get you know uh, have a hard time. I mean, you mentioned why I don't, you haven't really heard my name in ufology. Again, there's the religious connection that I have. And so people would say, oh, he's one of them. He's going to say
well,
that they're this or whatever.
religion doesn't disqualify UFO,
Mhm.
right? It can go hand in hand, actually.
I think it
Uh,
does. Yeah.
because if there's a god, he also created that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it doesn't disqualify anything, but
Yeah.
it's just I think I respect everybody's beliefs, but I don't disqualify anyone. If you're religious and you believe in UAP, more power to you, man. I'm actually exploring my religion and whatever is going on, because I do see things that are very interesting to look at, right? And that's
Hmm.
consciousness and energy, and
Yeah.
it's the way these vehicles move or
Yeah.
whatever it is. They look like, I always compare it with the flying dream, right? They just move at will. It's like you're dreaming, you're flying. They can do things that are impossible for us to do
Yeah.
technological wise at this point, but they come through our atmosphere. They can appear and disappear at will. They can move at will. They go through the sound barrier without a sonic boom, make a U-turn with Mach 60, 100. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, so there's a lot of things that are going on, and to investigate, um, but we just don't know yet. And I'm very curious, of course, on getting to know much, much, much more. Now, my next question to you, sir, is: have you ever seen a UFO?
Yes, many.
You
I've
did,
seen
huh?
many. Yeah. Hmm.
Please tell.
Yeah, I've seen them. I've seen weird lights in the sky as a kid, that I ended up seeing repeated. I remember one of the first ones I seen was like a green ball of light that was falling and flickering really fast from the sky, and I seen that twice in my life. Don't know what it is. I don't know that it was a UFO, right? But as I gotten older and my studies started to expand, and then getting into the biblical aspect of that, maybe these are angelic in nature, maybe these are the angels of the Bible, at least what we would have called them. Primitive man would have called these beings that are traveling from heaven to earth, essentially, right?
Right,
So I started doing my research in the Bible, and I've seen a couple other videos early on where people would go out and quote unquote summon UFOs and ask
right,
for them to show up and send the intention and meditate and pray, and they would have experiences. Things would show up on camera, balls of light that would come out of the sky and come out of other stars. And so while I was studying through the scriptures and watching a lot of those videos, just something moved inside of me to want to go out and try it.
right,
So I ended up going out and a bunch for a while, and almost like just in prayer, asking the Creator to allow me to see the angels if they're good. Like there was a caveat: if they're good, if they have our greatest intention in mind, and if they're traveling back and forth, to let me see one. And eventually I started seeing all types of strange anomalies within the sky. They begin to show up on demand. They would come by and say hello. I get telepathic messages saying, hey, look over here, and there's one there. I've seen fleet of UFOs in the middle of the day just come out of nowhere, and there's 70 of them in the sky. They look like black bars, and then they turn into white orbs, and then they turn into the black bar, then they disappear, and they would cloak and uncloak, and there was like 70 of them, and all in the sky like during the day. I'd see them at night. So yeah, when this stuff, that's why I started putting it in my music. I began to have all of these encounters and experiences, and then I'm researching the Bible even more and listening to other um, people's experiences with the CE5 initiative and making contact, and who and what are they. They can telepathically send us thoughts. Hey, look over here. This is what's happening. And there's like what we'll call downloads in the spiritual community. And so much happened for me during that period of my life. And um I've seen so much. I know, and
let me
it
ask
changed
you let me
everything.
ask let me ask you something. Are you aware of the Rua Zimbabwe case?
Which one is that? Is that where that's not where
Yes, yes,
the
that
children,
one.
yeah, and they would begin to communicate telepathically with the school
Yes,
kids. Yeah.
yes, yes. That's what, yeah, what you're telling reminds me of.
Yeah.
And that's, by the way, that's not the only case where that happened.
Exactly. You're hearing it a lot
Uh,
more now. You're hearing it a lot
yeah,
more
yeah,
now. But
Yeah, there's
again, you
one.
know, I interview people too, and you hear about people being abducted and having implants and radio chips in their heads, and they hear literal voices like someone talking to them. It's not the same, you know. There's a difference there. There's an inner knowing that speaks to your spirit, like this
Mm,
familiar voice of love, and so that's why it seems angelic. That's why it seems like it's never negative. It's not we're coming to kill you. We need, you know, telling you to do bad things. It's always like this comforting, godly, creative type, you know, entities that are letting us know, hey, we're on your side. You got this,
yeah,
man. You're just making it through this process of evolution to join yourselves amongst the stars. And so I think that's definitely what's happening.
yeah. It's very interesting because there's a lot of contradictions in what is being noticed. For example, the Rua case was basically a
Mhm.
message of love,
Yeah.
given to the children. Be careful with your planet and take
Hmm.
care. And whatever you're doing right now is very damaging. So that is a message of love. But then again, UAP has been noticed throughout the centuries, but the last 8 decades, last 80 years, these things tend to show up at nuclear weapons sites and messing with them.
Hmm.
You've probably heard of it.
Yeah.
We had a big case even over here in Holland. I was dying to tell you about. But of course, I have been talking to Mr. Robert Salas, who was in charge
Mhm.
of the Malmstrom nuclear air base in Montana. And he has a very vivid account of what happened. The UAP shows up, takes out the nuclear heads, and disappears. So, and when I talk to Mr. Elizondo, he says this is a worldwide phenomenon. The Russians have their encounters exactly like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
The Japanese, it's not just nuclear weapons, but also nuclear plants. It happened at Chernobyl. It happened at Fukushima. UAP was noticed. So there is something they don't like about nuclear weapons, and I kind of agree.
Yeah.
so, but then again, Mr. Elizondo told me that some things are actually quite dangerous because, for example, if you have like adversary countries like India and Pakistan, and they allow the one to keep their nukes and take out the other one's nukes, yeah, that could be like a declaration of war to them, and they might start shooting
Yeah.
stuff. So it's dangerous, and it's kind of that makes it kind of contradicting to me. Are they aware that the talking monkeys are quite aggressive?
For sure. I mean, you have the accounts of us trying to shoot them down, yeah, and
Mm,
maybe even successfully taking down craft, you know.
right.
And so, you know, that was one of the things when we began to step out and do the CE5 initiative and asking them to show up. Like, what is the karma behind going out and they show up and a UFO appears before you and says, "Hello, you know, we're here. We're watching over you." What if they show up and then the army hits them with a plasma beam or a missile and takes them out? And so there's definitely something going on. There's so many videos of even in outer space of things coming towards the Earth's atmosphere, and
Yeah.
then a laser beam shoots up at it and it turns around and leaves. So,
Mm,
you know, if we're getting into the idea of good guys and bad guys, my opinion is that the bad guys are in charge right now on the earth, and that
right.
those are the good guys. Those are the angels of the Bible and those things. That the way the earth, the way we're moving right now, what's happening in the earth, I don't think that that the righteous or the good guys are in control right now.
No, and there's always this question I'm asking: is humankind actually ready for a disclosure? I always make a joke. Like, what if a UAP lands right here, Amsterdam East Side? A being walks out. I'll tell you what happens. He will get punched in the face, robbed of his Nikes and his gold chains. People are still, I think,
Yeah.
afraid of the unknown, and a human reflex is if they're scared, they're violent. they
Yeah.
attack, right? We're still
Yeah.
very primitive,
Well,
very primitive.
again, when we're linking this back to spirituality, there's something that us humans have innately, which is empathy and the gift of discernment, being an empath. You're hearing a lot of people talk about this, where you can feel what somebody's thinking, you can feel their intentions. You get around a person without even speaking to them, and there's a bad vibe that you pick up off of them. And so we can
Right,
pick up on those vibes, right? Humans can tap into that. And very, very much, so for ETs, whatever you want to call them, something very similar, that they can scan people and be able to tell, okay, this is a hostile person. This person is ready for enlightenment. This person is ready for disclosure. I
right.
really feel like they're
They
operating
cherry
at a
pick people that, yeah,
heightened sense of spirituality, who's ready for that to go deeper, into this experience, and so I think that they can scan, and they know where we are individually.
yeah. I'll tell you a little bit what happened to me, because it's very interesting to me what you just mentioned.
Mhm.
When the New York Times article dropped, I was immediately captivated. It was mind blowing to me. American pilots captured UFOs on camera, and I
Mhm.
get to see it. Right? It was leaked. It was like the best day of my life. Like
Yeah.
a but but the thing is, it was at that point, as a journalist, I got to cover it. Well, that was a big problem because, first of all, the magazine and newspapers I was working for at the time wouldn't allow me to cover it because it was for nutcases, aluminium foil head kind of types.
Yeah.
But I was like, are you out of your mind? It's the Pentagon releasing in the New York Times
Yeah.
footage of UFOs, and you still think people are nuts. It's like the politic and the army is now saying it's there, right?
Yeah.
Well, then at some point, another editor in chief showed up, and he allowed me to cover it. I got to cover it. I started to talk to people like Mr. Elizondo, Harry Reid, the military man, Sean Cahill, scientist, Avi Loeb. Guess what? Truth. What happened? I saw one
Yeah.
when I started covering it, and I keep on seeing it. It's
Yeah.
nuts, and sometimes I'm thinking my mind is fucking with me.
Yeah,
There's
for
some
sure.
there's something wrong with me. But then again, I did film some. I've made footage, right? So I'm not crazy, and I'm thank God for technology. That I can show people like I'm not a nutcase. I'm there is something going on, right? So there's still a big stigma on talking about this, on covering this, even though evidence is being shared monthly now, right?
Oh yeah.
Uh, so when you, this is a weird question maybe, but when you saw your first UFO, was there something in your life happening at that time that might have been impactful?
Yeah, I think it was just coupled with spiritual awakening for me. Just taking, getting out of the religious side that was very dogmatic, that was very combative and things like that, and I became more loving. I became more accepting. I began to and so that was happening in my life, and I would say that ufology kind of facilitated that.
Right.
That this connection took me deeper, that the universe was bigger, that God was bigger. And so it played a huge role in my spiritual awakening. They kind of went hand in hand, I would say.
Wow.
It's
And
hard to tell which came first, honestly, but it was that fascination of this.
I get it. So you've also written books. Can you maybe tell me a little bit on the content of
Yeah,
your work?
for sure. So I wrote a book called Spirit Realm: Angels, Demons, Spirits, and the Sovereignty of God. And it's really to paint the picture of how there's many types of beings or entities or spirits that exist within the multiverse, and they have a job and they have a purpose, and to kind of paint that picture. Even what we will call demons, demons have a purpose. You invite demons into your life by the type of acts that you're committing upon the earth, and really just painting that picture with the scriptures, showing how God or the all would use angels and demons to do his or its bidding upon the earth, like confusion spirits, evil spirits, that God uses evil spirits. And that's a really big enigma for the religious community, because God is only good, but the scripture says that I'm the Lord thy God, that I create good and evil. Like, and it's created for you, the human, to pick. That I get to
Mm.
choose. I get to choose angels or demons. I get to choose love and light or darkness and decay. We get to choose with the words that we speak. And this I believe this earth is a school, a training grounds to see what is in us, to see if we get to ascend, to see if we can take our place amongst the stars. It's a test. And so in the book, I just kind of detail that, of how all these spirits work together, biblical references, but also my own encounters with UFOs and angels and spirits and ghosts and demons. So I give a biblical encounter and then share one of my encounters as well, and then trying to give some thoughts on it. So it's full of experiences with CE5 and going out and making contact and what I think they are, and what the Bible, some obscure scriptures that most people have never even read or thought about within the scriptures, that could be talking about these lights in the sky being angelic entities that we would call angels, or the seraphim that are watching us from literally the heavens, or heaven
Yeah,
itself, traveling back and forth from heaven to earth.
the seraphim, I've heard of them.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So I did see you speak to people on your podcast that have encountered or were abducted, or maybe at some were physically present with something extraterrestrial, right? That
Mm-hmm.
you talk a lot to those people. It's something you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe can you, because I'm very curious, because it's not per se something I I believe in, abductions or encountering.
Mm-hmm.
Although I do believe in encountering if they come here, and like the Rua Zimbabwe case or something. But like people who have like a real spiritual how do you call that, moment or something.
Mm-hmm.
Now there, I saw there's people who encounter certain races or certain beings. Can you maybe, how how many, say, ET races have you ever heard of, and what's out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say who's telling the truth. Who has an overactive imagination, and or what. And part of this journey, you're gonna have the the people who are genuine with their experiences and trying to share them, but you're also gonna have people who are great storytellers. There's a amazing documentary that came out on Netflix called Misha and the Wolves.
Aha.
Misha and the Wolves. And it's about a woman who had severe trauma in her early childhood and ended up making this story up about how she was wandered into the wilderness to go find her parents at 7 years old, and end up being raised by wolves and guarded by wolves and fed by them and all of this. And she told her story and started out in churches, and it people were crying when she would share her story. They were moved to compassion and say, "Hey, we need to make this a book, and I'm a publicist, and we need to get this out." And they ended up getting that lady's story, writing a book. Oprah picked it up. They made a movie about it. Oprah shared it on her book club, and she became a millionaire, traveling the circuit, sharing the story. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience, and so she became a millionaire doing this. She had a fallout with her publicist, and they began to do a little bit more background research on
She was
Misha,
full of shit.
and she was making it up. and eventually she came to say it was just a response to trauma, that her family was the laughing stock of the Jewish community. Her
Mm.
dad sold the family out and told secrets to the Germans and things like that, and so her family was despised, and so she made up a new
No,
family.
I think a new lie.
Yeah, a new lie, and so um, when I watched that documentary and I talked to so many people, I got over 440 something episodes on my podcast. I talked to people
Right.
from all walks of life. I'm a truth seeker at heart. Most of us are, but I do have a BS detector, because
Sure.
I've seen so much. I'm telling you some weird stories about lights appearing on command in the sky, right?
Mm.
um, I want to know the truth. Like if somebody's seen something similar, let's talk about it because I don't know who else to talk to. Um, and so I do think that a lot of this, what we've talked about, is like shrouded in fantasy and
Yeah.
making stories up. Just because that I've seen and sought and researched so much, and I'm left with so many more questions than I even had from the beginning. and
Right.
and when you talk to people who know their diets, they know their religious philosophies, they know a lot how their ships are, the propulsion systems for their ship. They know how old the race of entities are, how many races exist, and they just start spouting this information. um it seems far-fetched to me as a skeptic at heart, for sure,
Yeah.
but I have to lump myself in there because I'm interjecting some spiritual ideas that I think that they have. But when it comes to saying this as a matter of fact, yes, we're dealing with the Octurians or the beings from Zeta Reticuli or the Palladians. Listen, I've seen so much God's
Yeah.
honest truth. I put that on my family's life. Um, but they've never told me their names. They've never told me what star system they're from. You don't need to know that stuff. That's really not for us to even know. Like especially if it's angelic and we're supposed to be here having this earth experience and they're just guardians, which I really think is more of what's happening. Um, we're just trying to put two and two together. But when you get people who share such far out stories that they just keep going, 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 it's almost as they make it up as they go. Um,
Mm.
you know, I've heard all those stories. I don't necessarily believe them. My hope is that one of those people are telling the truth.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, you mentioned Zeta Reticuli. Do you believe Bob Lazar? Do you believe what Bob Lazar is saying is true?
it's so hard, man. I have to throw him in the middle of those people. But I'm probably in the middle of those people too with my stories, right?
Yeah, but then
And I'm
again,
okay with that, you know?
but then again, it's fact that Bob Lazar had been working on S4, right?
But there's so many disinformation projects out there that are just, once the public or the people are getting close to something, it's said that when a lot of these guys retire, that hey, they still work for the government, for the FBI to, you know, get people off of, put people on cold trails that end in fantasy, They
Well,
begin in
there,
reality, but they end in fantasy.
yeah. To be devil's advocate for a second, there's there are some strong voices saying that the whole UAP disclosure thing that's going on for the last 4 years is actually also a misinformation
Mhm.
strategy,
Yeah.
because maybe the Chinese and the Russians have weapons the Americans do not possess, and they, for some reason, need them to believe they're in possession of something extraterrestrial, or
Yeah.
making the general public believe it's not the Chinese or the Russians,
Mm.
but something else, right?
Hey, that's a great, alternative theory that could be true. 100%.
Yeah, it's
We
quite
didn't
out
get this from
there.
the Chinese. We got it from the space aliens.
Yeah. Yeah, space drones. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that could always be a possibility, but it's such a out there move if they
Yeah.
did it like that, man. That would be really ballsy.
Yeah.
But
It's for the skeptic. I do approach this as a skeptic, but I think that it's helped me have my own personal experiences and encounters.
Hmm.
And I think everyone should. I don't have videos. I don't have. I've got. I'm a historian. Especially within the biblical text, I can show you and those things. And for some people, that's all it takes, right? That's all it takes.
Sure.
And so, um, you just got to figure out what it is that people are looking for. What is it that they're ready to handle, and for many people, they have to approach it from a religious perspective. They have to approach it from that connotation.
Well, I'm very happy with finally the science community pulling their weight. For example, Mr. Loeb's Galileo project. They start to really investigate UAP.
Hmm.
Simply by developing a new camera that can really scan our nearest skies, which is where we usually see UAP.
Yeah.
We tend to look too far. We want to see what's behind the moon and behind the, you know, we are not really looking at what's right there. So I think I'm a big fan of that. Um, and you know, the investigation of this topic is very very important because if you talk to a Mr. Elizondo, he's sitting on a lot of footage, data, signature systems, etc. But it's all classified. He cannot share that with us.
Yeah.
He has been leaking stuff. Stuff that is not harmful for Homeland Security, but there's much more. But we will never see that. So if scientists are creating systems that gives us the general public
Yeah.
access to whatever is there, yeah, that's huge, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
thank you,
mean,
Sarah, Laura, for your donation.
yeah, you have a lot of people with the scientific community, even with the spiritual community, is like, you know, giving us the scientific breakdowns on things that we believed spiritually or that were in ancient scriptures, that they're coming out to say, yeah, there is you have your heart can feel emotions. There is a electromagnetic field that extends past a person's skin, your auric field, and things like that. And so there's a lot of people giving you the science behind your spirituality or the science behind UAP, right? So those,
Well,
I think, the communities really can complement one another.
I definitely can. And for example, explain falling in love to me then.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
why is this girl why am I attracted to that girl? Or and
I
why am I
mean,
feeling like that?
the whole, and we're throwing in the science, we're throwing in spirituality, we're throwing in religion, and then I kind of mentioned Misha and the wolves. So now we're throwing in the psychological, the
Right.
psychological aspect of it, and the traumatic aspect. I mean, just from what you just said about tell me why I am attracted, whether it is something spiritual or something that is unseen, psychologically, maybe that person reminds you of your mother. Maybe that person reminds you of your grandmother. So she seems loving and caring and familiar, right? So there's a psychological aspect to a lot of this stuff as well.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And but then again, there's also something that is very chemical in chemistry. You know,
Hmm.
there's once in a while you'll look a girl in the eye and there's this immediate attraction, and you both feel it, and that something's gonna pop. you know, but yeah. So oh, this is an interesting question. Oh, sorry, I got distracted by this
Hmm.
question. It's actually a nice question. So, do you see a connection between diet and spiritual?
Mm, I do. I do. I'm one who's taken my diet into captivity as of a few months and have lost a lot of weight. I feel amazing. I
Good for you,
look a
man.
lot better. Um, and so, yeah, I do think that what we put in our mouth, if it's garbage in, you get garbage out, whether just the way you feel sluggish, your brain doesn't work as good. You have the gut bacteria, gut biome that is really your second or third brain is your stomach. What you put in your mouth affects the way that you feel and the way that you think. So when
You
it's
are what
tapped
you
in,
eat.
yeah, exactly. You are what you eat, but also more from a biblical Jewish perspective, you are what you eat, ate. You are what you eat, ate. So bottom feeders and pork and shellfish that are just like scavengers that eat waste and feces and things like that, and then we eat them. So that stuff is, we're eating what they ate. So there's definitely a connection there as far as, our genetic makeup, and how it affects us spiritually and well, mentally and physically, but spiritually as well. I do think that there are times to now I'm not a strict vegetarian at this point, but I do have moments where I want to commit myself to having encounters and to go out and try to make connection, if you will, where I do try to get all of the meat and things like that, processed food, out of my diet. So there's some interesting scriptures. I talk about this in my book about angelic connection through fasting. Jesus, when he fasted, then the angels came, and after he was tempted by Satan, the angels came to minister to him. Daniel fast, and then a week or 2 weeks into his fast, the angel Gabriel comes to bring this message about his life and his decisions. And there's a lot of people who link that stuff, including myself, into the spiritual connection to extraterrestrials. We're seeing these UFOs, or even calling them angels. To me, I think in a lot of it, the words can be interchangeable.
For
So
sure.
there's definitely, Daniel went on the 2 week fast and just fruits and vegetables. It wasn't that he didn't eat anything, fruits and vegetables, and he had that encounter with the angel Gabriel. So I do think that there's a connection there for sure.
Yeah, and of course, in Islam, there's the month of Ramadan. It's when you go make
Yeah.
your connection with God stronger by
Hmm.
fasting, right?
Yep.
And then again, if you fast, intermittent fast, for example, you actually look younger and live longer. It's proven. It's science. It's true.
People have been telling me just on the podcast, like, Truthseekah, you look like you're shining. You just look like you're shining. And we're like, yeah, you can see it. Like, I haven't been telling you, I've been posting about my diet and those things, but people take notice. And
Yeah, I've
I
been.
have I have been working on my diet, and you like you have to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been dieting for a while. I'm actually 75 years old. Just joking. So Blue Eyes has a question for you. How does Truthseekah make contact with all these races?
Okay. Um,
Thank you for your donation, Blue Eyes, by the way. Sorry.
I would say, as far as races, I don't know specific races by race. What I would say, um, categories. Again, the seraphim, the Raphaim, the Malachim, the cherubim, right? The four living creatures throughout the scriptures. There's,
I think you just met a bunch of Jews, man.
I know, right? It's, I
Just
mean,
joking.
those are I mean, again, could be saying the same thing. What about when, if I say the Raphaim, maybe that's another word for Palladium. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
So,
Yeah.
hey, I'm not against that. I don't know. They've never introduced themselves by those names, just like my dark skinned brothers never come up and say, "Hey, I'm African American so and so." They
No,
just come up and
no,
say, "Hey,
yeah.
I'm so and so," or whatever. They never tell you their race when they meet you. We are the Palladian. No.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, how do I make contact? So stargazing. It is, going out on the new moon, which is the best time to go is during a new moon, just so that you can see a lot more stuff in the sky, because there's less light pollution from the moon, and you can see more stars. And if something's moving around out there, you can see it. And so in an open field, stargazing, and set the intention that, hey, I want to make contact. I want to make contact with what? With beings that have my best interest in mind. I don't want to be abducted. I don't want the demons to come. Whatever people think, that you have to get that out of your head, because you're going to approach that with fear and skepticism and hysteria. So that's what I do. I will go out into a field and we'll set that intention, and send the thoughts, send the intention, simply ask. You have not
Yeah.
because you ask not. what is possible. I'm going to ask for it. I'm going to believe and see what happens. And so that's things that would start with trying to physically see something. But spiritually, I believe that we are connected with many helpers and watchers in the spirit world. So prayer and meditation, breath work plays a huge role in my life of going within to get without, to try to make contact, but not to leave your body or go outside, but go within, because within we're connected with any and everything. We're connected
Right.
with the demons. We're connected with the angels, with our ancestors, with our friends and family. Like, so if you can get
That
that down, that is the key to be able to make contact and
that
to
is
conti-
Kabbalah, actually, what you
to
just said.
continue contact as well.
Yeah, that is Kabbalah, what you just said. Thank you, Laura Sosa, for your sticker. Thank you. And by the way, she's giving you a compliment. She said he is glowing. He's either pregnant or a vampire. It's because you're glowing. People. Okay,
Let me fix my
Laura.
lighting.
um, so let's elaborate a little bit on your podcast. So please tell the viewers where they can find you
Mhm.
and what they can expect. What are you covering?
Yeah. Again, so we've been doing a lot of ufology lately, and a lot of experiencers and contactees. That's what I like. I like when the two worlds meet. Remember, I've mentioned at 4 years old seeing those entities that I saw them there. So when I hear stories about something from another world popping into our realm, whether you summoned it using a Ouija board, whether
Mm.
it just showed up in your room at night, I don't care. I really like to hear those stories, and hopefully they're true stories. Hopefully they're not, just good storytellers and things. So we do talk a lot about that, whether it's near death experiences and things. So I talk about that, but we interview any and everybody if it has to deal with spirituality and those topics. So religion, philosophy, near death experiences, ufology. But all of my stuff is if you type in Truthseekah, one word, Truth SEEKAH, on any platform, you'll find me. We do live streams like this on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. Central,
Awesome.
US time. And so I'm going to have Max on my show here soon. So make sure you guys subscribe, click the
That's right.
notification bell to get
That's
updates.
right.
So I'm going to be able to pick his brain on my podcast. And yeah, if you follow my YouTube, you can check out my music. If you prefer to listen on podcasting apps, I'm on all of them as well. So
Awesome. Awesome. Everybody follow this guy. I like his fresh new look in the community, and he has a unique view on whatever is going on. There's not a lot of people who make the correlation between religion and the phenomenon, and I'm
mhm.
interested. I want to hear more. And what's also cool, he makes music about it, man, and it's really good. You should check it out. Um, so I will be putting your information in the subscription on the YouTube channel, so people can check you out. But I do have a interesting question by Jos, my fellow countryman Jos. Biochemistry has connections to psychological, spiritual, emotional side of human life. Oh, it's not a question. He's just it's a
Yeah,
statement.
all things are connected, the
Yeah.
spiritual, the emotional, um, physical, everything's connected. And we have to look at them. Nothing is separate, even religion, philosophy, everything shares, everything borrows, and life complements life,
Yeah, that's interesting because when you look at Judaism and Jewish mysticism, which is Kabbalah, it was actually Kabbalah is something that came from the first group of people who became monotheistic, the Jews, right? Believing in just one God. So a lot of Kabbalah comes from shamanism, right? From the nature, they were
hmm
worshiping nature
Yep.
gods, right?
Yep.
So this is why you have within Kabbalah this deep connection to nature, each other, the exchange of energy, and everything being connected, right?
hmm
Which is very interesting. And I always find it mind blowing when I look at it. Of course, you must have seen that movie Avatar
Oh yeah.
by James Cameron. So the blue species, their most holy place is the tree of life, which is the symbol of Kabbalah, which is exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
That tree is connected to it all, to them, the nature. You
Mm,
respect nature. You don't harm on purpose. You live a loving life. So this is basically what we are talking about right now. If we're talking about the phenomenon and everything is being connected, we are going actually back to our very roots when we are looking into investigating what the hell this could be, this connection. Why
yeah.
is there a consciousness which is becoming more and more clear? There's a consciousness
Yeah.
that is involved. Even the way UAP has been, when it's noticed, right? It's very conscious in the way it
Yeah.
moves. It can manipulate gravity. Does all kinds of things that aren't supposed to happen physically, but yeah, there's a deep connection. So to
Yeah.
me, it's fascinating. If you look into that, I would love to hear more. Anyway,
Yeah, for sure I do. Like just exploring what we call God and the nature of consciousness, and the idea of what you believe will show itself to you. So there is this aspect of when we're doing a CE5, we're out in the field asking for something, almost willing it to happen. Part of me with the study of um, consciousness is like, and they're communicating telepathically. There's thoughts that are downloaded. It's like, what if that didn't exist? What if that wasn't a being from Zeta Reticuli? What if we created it as we wanted it so bad to happen that it pops into our reality and shows itself to you? Because we're seeing that with ufology. We're seeing that with ghosts and goblins and fairies and so many more things that people are looking for. You notice that the majority of the time, people who aren't looking for this stuff won't see anything. It's to those that picked up a breadcrumb and then they begin to look for another, and then now there's synchronicity. Now there's numbers that are repeating everywhere. We all look at those same numbers. It doesn't mean the next person can look at that number and it doesn't mean anything. We hear phrases and thoughts and things like that, and it doesn't mean anything to you unless it registers somewhere in your psyche or somewhere within your consciousness, and it opens up something for you to explore, something for you to look into. And so there's definitely some connection there of what if we're creating, I mean, even this reality, this interview, what if we're creating it all? What if this is a dream, a simulation, people would say.
Truman
And
Show.
the Truman Show, and I mean, oh, and who's scripting it? Is it God? Is God the infinite consciousness that we're all linked to? Can we tap into it, the Akashic, if some would call it, and pull things out of it or put things in it that show up later? Hey, I want to be a rapper that raps about UFOs and do podcasts and interviews, and I want to talk to people from all over the world. Yes, you can do it. Anything that you put your mind to and put that energy with, which is what I would call white magic. It's an exploration of consciousness. Mysticism tries to find ways to articulate that, as well as now science we've been talking about.
Cool. Um, when you said, maybe this is a Truman Show, or maybe they're, yeah, this is like
Simulation,
a
yeah.
simulation, a test. I always another movie metaphor, actually, Men in Black. At some point, they open a locker, I think at a railway station or something, and there's tiny aliens living in the locker. But when Jay opens the locker, the aliens see Jay, and they think he's God. So they say, "All hail Jay!" But it's because once in a while the door opens and it's that thing, that huge being they see, who gives them whatever they need.
Yeah.
To them, it's God. But when he closes the door, there's the whole wide world behind him. They've never seen, right? So their perception on a greater being or a greater something, it's, I think, the same for us humans. I do think we are very primitive. We just started flying planes 100 years ago, driving cars,
Yeah.
using telephones, getting information through the internet is just 20, 30 years ago. Before that, we were for thousands and thousands and thousands of years not doing much different. We were making fires, beating the shit out of each other, trying to take each other's land. Um, whatever age we live in is a key age for humankind.
Yeah.
And I think we're very, very lucky to experience that. But I do think we are quite primitive still,
Yeah. I think we're at a precipice right now, a place where we are tapping into technology that's moving very fast, and it's very scary, and it is into the unknown. And so that's not going to stop. Like, that's where we're headed unless something major happens. But there's also this cry of the ancestors, the cry of our DNA, to not give up the shamanism, not
Right.
give up the earth magic, or your connection with the earth, even being a spirit or a being that communicates with you, the stars being alive, like all of the ancient philosophy and the beautiful connection that they had, not to give up on that. So that we're in the middle of this moving forward into technology and to the internet and to um, VR and things like that. You can create avatars and live. Listen, the movie Avatar was that gave them an identity in another realm, whether it's a
Right.
real realm or whether it's a psychedelic realm with a mushroom, or whether it's an internet realm where they get to create it and people can join. And how many of the people are real? How many of the people are bots, NPCs, if you will? So, like, there's a lot going on, but I think that the beauty is that I'm for both.
Right.
And I don't think we should look for one without the other. I think that we should preserve the earth, preserve our spirituality, but also move ahead technologically as well.
Yes. So blue eyes. Sorry, you've been dying to have that question answered. Truth seeker, where or how can I get with you to experience what you have?
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, if you go to my website, truthseekah.com, there's a couple different ways. We do a lot of community stuff as well. We have online communities and different ways to get involved and find like-minded people. Obviously, on the podcast and in chats like this, which we do twice a week. We also do something called the School of the Mystics, which is it's been a once a week thing, but I think we're going to move it to once a month, just to hang out, teaching, prayer, meditation. But we also do retreats and things like that too. We have a retreat coming up in November where we do everything that I've been talking about. We go out into the fields and we try to make contact. We go hiking and do yoga, breath work, and kundalini and cacao ceremonies and all of this beautiful stuff that we talk about. And we do online, but we do it in person as well. So we have one of those coming up. But yes, I am
Awesome.
in the US. I'm in Alabama. And so, but yeah, you can find out more info about everything on my website. I have a um, FAQ and all that kind of stuff for those of you who want to find out more about what we got going on. So
Like a link tree or something.
yeah, yeah, there's a
Oh,
link tree. But like my website, so I got so much stuff and resources on on my website. So
all right, all right. Well, we hit the hour mark, and that went by very fast because it was a good conversation. Is there anything you would like to plug?
yeah, again, I just put out a new album yesterday. So if you are intrigued by this conversation, and I have songs about UFO contact. I have a lot of songs about you know mysticism and everything that we've talked about today and more. And I've got several albums worth, but I just put out a new album yesterday entitled White Magic. I'm on Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, everywhere that you listen to music. I've just got a whole catalog of spiritual connections and trying to articulate these experiences and encounters and what it felt like when I saw the UFOs and what it felt like when you live your dreams, exploring consciousness. And it's just something beautiful I've been blessed to bring to the table. So definitely my music. I have a book that is available spirit realm. Actually, Jordan Maxwell wrote the forward for me, so that
Cool.
he's a good friend and somebody that a colleague that I look up to. And it's one of the reasons why I'm able to do what I'm doing now is just because of the work that he did and the path that he paved, I think, for many of us, and even his encounters and branches in ufology as well. So his stories and things like that. So he wrote the forward to my book. So again, just go to truthseekah.com. You'll be able to find everything there if you click around and browse.
Well, I wouldn't hesitate if I were you guys. Follow this dude. And Truth, I would love to have you back anytime, dude. It was a great conversation, and I enjoyed it very much. And by the way, I'm going to be on his podcast the 4th of November. So, just so you know. People, thank you for listening. Truth, it was my pleasure. It was
Thank you for hosting, man. Thank you for having me, for sure.
I had a lot of fun and a very unique perspective, something new for us,
Yeah,
and new perspectives. I love it.
gotta join it.
You
Got
got
to
it,
meet
man.
somewhere in the middle, right?
You got it. You got it, man. So, thank you, viewers. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Truth. And till next time. Ciao.